Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem. This is a postmortem of my Blitz chess game number 215. I was white here. I decided to play the Reti opening again, knight f3. Don't play that all that often. It's one that I've just introduced recently into my repertoire to try and get some variety, so I don't know all the ins and outs of it. My opponent played knight c6, a very rare response. There's lots of other responses. I usually play knight f6 myself. You can also play d5 and c5. Look like all these are respectable moves. So let me draw them. Good responses to the Reti, all of these. And they have different plans in mind depending on which one you're playing. So knight f6, which I play, is kind of a waiting move and waiting to see if if white makes a pawn move and which pawn he's going to move to try and formulate a plan for black. Okay, but knight c6 was played. And it's not bad, but maybe e4 is good for white here. I could have played that. Or d4. d4 is an interesting way to play because usually in queen's pawn openings you don't want the knight blocking the c pawn. Although there are defenses to the queen's gambit, the Chigorin defense, where black plays knight c6 blocking a c pawn. So it's playable. I'm leaving the chess engine off, by the way, because there's some interesting tactics in this game, and I wanted to pose some tactical quizzes during the video, so I didn't want the engine giving them away. But I'll report on the findings. So he played, I'm sorry, he played e5 here, and I just went to d3 to stop the pawn from going. I think the engine preferred to move d4 immediately, but this is okay. It actually rates this as even to slightly better for black, so it's not like white's play is anything great here. And then I played the move, my opponent played the move b6. Looks like he could try d5 here as a way to maybe get some edge. Okay, and I go bishop g2, and we're out of the book. So let's just look at the notation. So there are some tactics on this diagonal right here. Go ahead and put this on the board. Yeah, it's my turn to move, and so if you want to take a second to think about this position, it's white's turn, and there's a simple tactic here. Okay, pause the video if you want some time to think about it. It's not too hard, but if you haven't found it, maybe pause the video and stare at it until you have. I'm going to give the answer away. The tactic is knight takes e4. You can just grab that pawn because if he takes, which is not the best move, if he takes, then you can grab his bishop. And he has to move his rook, and then your bishop just comes back. And so you've picked up a center pawn, and your development is excellent. He's got no light squared bishop to defend these white light squared weaknesses, and so you're in great shape. So what's the best move? After knight takes, the best move is not to take back, but to try something like queen f6. But white can then grab the knight here. And then, I forget the best reply. Probably just taking back and castling, or playing e4. That was it. Playing e4. That was the best reply. And so again, white has won an extra pawn. His development isn't quite as good as in the other line, and white has kept the light squared bishops. And black has kept the light squared bishop. So black is in better shape, but white is winning. Basically, just a pawn up. So that's the tactic here, and I didn't spot this during the game. I played c4, but there will be some more tactics coming up shortly. My opponent went knight to d4, and this was when I started thinking about this attack here. But right now, if I take the pawn, he's going to take my bishop, so it's going to backfire on me. So I castle, and now I'm sort of threatening to win this pawn, which he ignores by playing bishop to c5. So I went ahead and grabbed the pawn, and bishop takes, king takes. The interesting thing is that this pawn grab is not nearly so favorable. It looks like I'm just a pawn up, but actually black has pretty well-placed pieces. So this gives an advantage to white, according to the engine, but not a full pawn advantage. So black has compensation. Anyway, after king takes g2, he played d6, so I retreat my knight. And then he went knight f6. And right here, this is the second tactic. Once again, it's white's turn to move. And actually, if you listen to the game as I was playing it live, I knew there was a tactic here. I had a feeling there must be a tactic. And the key point is that this bishop is trapped by these pawns. So there's got to be a tactic based on that trapped bishop, and I just didn't find it during the game, and I played a move which is just not the best move. So, so here's your chance. There's your second tactical quiz in this video. It's your turn to white. It's your turn as white. What do you play to take advantage of the trapped bishop? Okay, pause the video if you want more time to think about it. I'm going to give the answer away. The answer is knight takes knight. And what's cool and what's hard to see about this is, of course, he's going to take back, is that even here, when the bishop has come forward, it's still trapped, because after e3, where's the bishop going, right? It has no squares here. If it goes to that square, it's just going to get trapped by the pawn push d4. So just put that on the board. It's just got nowhere to go. The knight is blocking its progress too. So it was hemmed in not only by his own pawns, but also by the knight. And so he's got nowhere to go, and he's losing a piece. So that's the way in this position to take advantage. So white to move, knight takes knight, bishop takes knight, e3, traps the bishop. So I couldn't find that during the game. Bit of a shame. Would have been interesting to see that played out. But just as a reminder, it's always dangerous to set up this pawn formation with your bishop in front of it on either color complex, either white squares or dark squares. But you're just asking for trouble when you block your bishop's natural retreat lines with pawns like this. Okay, so I played the move e3 first, figuring to build up with d4, but he can move his knight with tempo. Queen takes. And now he can get out of trouble by playing the move d5 rather, just giving the bishop a retreat square. And that's even defended by the queen and the knight, so it's not even a pawn sack. So black is fine after this, but he castled and allowed me to trap his bishop. d4. So yeah, d4. There's no way out now. And he played bishop to b4, a3, bishop to a5, but just nowhere for the bishop to go. So he played h6, and I take the bishop. And so the game should be over, but there was one more interesting tactical moment during the game. So let's get up to that point. Not a whole lot going on. I mean, this rest of the game could be looked at as an exercise in how to play when you have an extra piece against nothing. You just want to play simply and keep your pieces, trade them off when it's to your advantage, or just trading them off actually increases your advantage. So trading pieces, keep your pawns, and in the end, if you have a lot of pawns and an extra piece, it's going to mean easily winning endgame. Okay, so he went, I went knight c3 here, yeah, just developing. Knight h7, he's repositioning his knight to the g5 square. Bishop d2, maybe the bishop should have gone to b2. It would have been more useful on that diagonal, I think, because after a while I felt like the bishop was kind of hemmed in over here. Knight g5, queen e2, c6, h4. Yeah, so I just wanted to kick the knight away and give my pieces to better squares. So I figured from e6, really, I'm controlling all these dark squares, and he has no good squares to go, no good place to go with his knight. I played knight e4. He played d5. Yeah, I wasn't really happy with that move, knight e4, because once again I was trying to figure out where is this bishop going and what can I do with it. But this trade is okay. Opens up a few lines and cancel that. He took with the queen. Sorry. That was an interesting. Yeah, it was kind of caught me by surprise. Sometimes, yeah, you have the advantage and you get a little bit relaxed. So that's the other key point when you have a big advantage is try not to give back the piece right away. But I'm not giving it back. Queen f3, f5 doesn't win the queen because the queen is defended here, so the knight can just move away. And if I can trade queens, that's good. So good for me. So he retreated, and at least get the knight off. And this bishop is still hemmed in by my pawns, so the extra piece I got is just not that great. And it's taking a while for the effect to be felt of the extra piece. You just have to keep playing. I went rook a to c1, rook a c8, just ganging up on the c6 pawn. And then he has moved his queen about, so he undefended the a pawn. The queen from d8 was defending the a pawn, so I grabbed that. And also this puts the bishop on a good square. And then he comes up with an interesting plan here. So g5, very risky, but he's losing anyway, so why not take a few risks? And I played rook h1 thinking to get something going against his king, This opening up the H file is, of course, double-sided because either side can use it in this position, and maybe I'm even quicker to get to the H file. So it was a mistake, but I was a little worried when he played this move. And right here, after Queen E2, I saw that he had the opportunity to play Queen D5 check. And I mentioned this in the video. And it picks up a piece. And I thought that was pretty unfortunate. But it turns out that Queen D5 check is not a particularly good move. And there's the move he played is just fine. It's as good as pretty much any other move in the position. I think the chess engine had him shuffling some rooks or something like that. Perhaps a rook lift is good here. Don't remember the exact recommendation, but the interesting point is that Queen D5 check and grabbing the bishop is not good. So that's the question for you. Why is that not good? That's your third tactical quiz here. And yeah, why don't you pause the video and think about this one? This is kind of subtle and interesting. And maybe it's not that subtle, but it's an interesting position to contemplate. So just imagine Queen D5 check. Say I play. Let's go ahead and put it on the board then. Queen D5 check, and I play. There's a new variation, right? I play E4 to block the check. This is maybe to give you an idea of what's going on here. So I don't want to move my king back. I just leave it up there and leave my rooks connected on the back row. And so now grabbing the bishop here is a big mistake, and that's the question. Why is grabbing the bishop a big mistake in this situation here? So queen takes bishop on A5 is the move we're contemplating, and that's a mistake, and the question is, why is that a mistake? Okay, pause the video and think about this for a while. I think it's pretty interesting, and maybe it's a good opportunity for you to exercise your ability to calculate. I'm going to give the answer away now. Let's go ahead and put it on the board. Queen takes bishop, queen to C4 check is the reply. And now actually the engine says the best response is for the queen to come back to D4 and sacrifice itself. So obviously that's losing. But what else is there? How about the simple rook F7 blocking? Well, there's a very nice mate in 5 here. And you can pause the video again if you want to think about how to mate in this situation. It's white's turn to move. I'm going to give the answer away now, starting with the move rook H8 check. And if the king takes, I guess the king could try running to G7. Let's just look at this case. If the king takes, then it's queen takes F7. And look at this. The queen is guarding all of these squares, and the threat is rook to H1 checkmate, because the king has no squares. The king has no squares to run to, and there is no defense. You can attack the queen, but it doesn't matter because you can't stop the rook from coming over here and checkmating. So after king here, there's also a checkmate. I didn't look at the exact line here, so I'll leave this as an exercise to you guys. Oh, probably here. This is good. If the king takes the rook, then you can grab the rook with check and then bring the other rook to H1 again and deliver checkmate. And if he doesn't take the rook, then the queen will grab the rook with checkmate, and that's winning. Okay, so in this position, the king is in check. Rook F7 doesn't work. Queen here is the best move, but you don't want to give up the queen. So your only other try is to move the king to G7. And now the engine gives the interesting move, queen to E6. Just not even delivering a check, just creeping in closer with the queen. And so black desperately tries to scurry back, and then queen here, check. And this is just an overwhelming attack. The unfortunate thing is that black's pieces are all along the back row. The king is going to be forced away from this H-file with checks, and then the white's rook is going to come in. And so it's quite a few moves deep. I'm not going to give the whole line, but just leads to a crushing edge for white. Black once again has to sacrifice his queen to avoid being mated. So that's how it ends. So anyway, I thought that was pretty fascinating here. That in the game, I thought actually Queen d5 was the best move, and that grabbing the bishop and material equality. Well, I would still have the edge with a couple pawns, but he's getting closer to material equality. But I just have an overwhelming attack because he's opened up his king too much, basically, by pushing these pawns. And to take the bishop, he has to give up this diagonal, which allows my queen to get into the attack. So that's why. Anyway, he played queen e4 check, and after this, there was never any doubt of the outcome. It all just happens pretty routinely. You keep developing your pieces. You avoid avoid getting mated and avoid falling for some perpetual checks. So eventually, I had to block with the queen and the bishop to stop the checks, and then trading the queens, getting to a situation where I just have an extra piece. And the more pieces come off, the more I have an advantage. So here we are down to a bishop and rook versus bishop with some extra pawns. And my bishop is still not a great piece because it's sort of hemmed in by my own pawns. And his one pawn is doing a good job of holding back my pawns. So it is kind of funny how long black can hold out in this situation. But eventually I get my king to safety and I give up the bishop just to eliminate the last pawn. And this is a pretty easy king and pawn ending to win with 3 extra pawns that are all connected. And so we transform from a king and pawn from a rook and pawn ending to a king and pawn ending. And this is also easily winning. So I've got 2 pawns here, which is one of the easiest kind to win. You just use your king and your extra pawn at the end. So if there's only 1 pawn on the board, this would actually be a draw. But because I have another pawn, I can move the pawn here. And his only move is to move out, and then I can move up and then get a queen and win the game. So he resigned at this point. Anyway, I thought there were some interesting tactical moments in that game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.